Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome back to Areopa webinars. Today we have, it's our 55th, and Kennie Pontoppidan. I always hesitate a bit when I pronounce your name, Kennie. Sorry for that. Welcome to have you on. Let's say our advocate to telemetry, our push behind a lot of initiatives to get us as partners on telemetry. And I'm very happy that you responded to my request of giving a webinar. Before I'm going to hand off to you, Kennie, I will go through a couple of slides, which I normally do, a couple of practical things like the housekeeping rules. All who are here and have been here before, that's familiar to you, but to the new ones, your microphone is muted. I'm the moderator, Luc van Vugt, and I will pick up questions from the question window. So if you have any questions or comments, whatever, put them there and I'll pick them up. So I'll be your voice towards Kennie. And whenever it fits best, I will step into to pose the question. As always, it will be recorded and you can find it on our channel. It's growing in number of videos, but it's also growing in number of subscribers, as you can see. If you want to be in the know and you're not yet subscribed to our newsletter, please do so. Be welcome. I've sent out last week a new one because of what is next, and the next and last webinar of this season will be mine. Took the opportunity just before I'm going to have my summer break to talk about test automation, and specifically the fact that test automation is often viewed as a technical exercise, which in my opinion isn't and shouldn't be. So be welcome to join me on that session. So after that, summer break is ahead and we will be picking up in September season 4, and it might be due to a change in my weekly agenda that it might move to Wednesday instead of Tuesday, but I'll let you know in time. Before I'm going to hand over to you, Kennie, I want to thank Fornaf, our sponsor. Been doing this for 3 years already and will be with us in the next season. So I'm going to make you presenter, and yes, that should happen right now. So it's up to you, Kennie. Yep, I can see you.
Thank you, Luc. And in case any of you don't know, my last name is Pontoppidan. So now you know. But it's fine. The topic of today is telemetry, but not necessarily something that is like a technical talk. If you think of the word telemetry, it just means usage data. And that's really what telemetry should be all about, is how are people using this environment in Business Central or this app. Now, when we started adding telemetry, the rationale behind that was, and I think I just looked it up, we added telemetry support in version 15.0. So a few releases back. The first rationale behind that was that how could we have Business Central partners move customers online, SaaS, with no visibility, no observability is also a posh word for that. We thought that that's not going to fly. If you normally do things on premises, you have performance counters, you have a lot of things where you can monitor the health and performance of a system. And we wanted to make that available in Business Central Online as well. That's why we started with things such as long-running queries or web service calls or login telemetry. And that was simply just the starting point, the first few types of signal. Now, in the very beginning, we didn't have any tooling, we just had data. And I was young and naive. I thought, well, if only we provide you data, you will definitely be data-driven because you would have a natural inclination to be that. Now, what I learned, and of course I should have known that, is that telemetry is just one topic that competes with a lot of other topics that you need to learn. So any friction, any learning curve on telemetry competes with your attention for other things such as AL or DevOps or test or app source or whatever it is. That's why I began producing samples, and this is what many of you probably know, this AKA or BC Tech repository here on GitHub has a lot of different samples and different guidelines of how to use telemetry in many different areas, from Excel, data lake integration, tooling, Power BI, KQL samples. But even having that I got a feedback from a lot of you that it's still a long way from having data into having information, and from information into having insights. And each of these steps doesn't come for free, even with the samples. So the feedback I got was make it like remove friction. It must be super easy, like clickety-click, and then you have insights. Now, we decided Business Central telemetry is bring your own. So you still need to enable telemetry, but I'm going to show you something that hopefully where you can relate to now. We are really close, or actually we are clickety-click. As of yesterday, the new Power BI app, so it's an app source, that's why it's called an app, was released on App Source. So perfect timing for this webinar. Right now, when you go to App Source and filter on Power BI apps, the Business Central telemetry app is unfortunately, well, it's new, located on page 6. We'll make sure that change. I'm sure when you give reviews, this will trickle up. But for now, that's where it is, and you will simply find it. Let's see if I can find it. Or was it here? Business Central Telemetry Power BI app. Now I'll share the link with you, or Luc can do that after the webinar. But what this does is it simply gives you a way to install a Power BI app where you can connect this app to your telemetry resource in Application Insights, and now you get a lot of insights for free. The app is free, provided by free. It's open source. All the source code is located here on the BC Tech under Power BI, App Source here, and PBIX. So that's the source code is here. It will still be there. You can clone it, roll your own. The beauty of having it on App Source is that it's easy to discover. Plus, since this is what's called a template app, that means whenever we update the app in App Source, you can just update your app as well in Power BI without having to do anything. So let's try and see how it works. I click Get It Now, and I need to confirm, yes, I would like to get it now. And that opens up a small dialog for Power BI to put this into my Power BI subscription. Since I'm in Microsoft, our Power BI subscription is msit.powerbi.com, not a big secret at all. That's where it will install. And when this is almost done, here you can see that I can choose either to update one of my previous installations, or I can choose to install another copy. So let's do this webinar. Let's see if now there is a workspace in my Power BI subscription for that. So I will just see telemetry webinar and see, yeah, that's fine. So what this will do is simply install the app in a Power BI workspace with this name. So let's do that. And this takes 10 seconds, and then you're up and running. Now, when I say up and running, this has not been connected to to any telemetry resource yet. So when this installs, it will take a few more seconds. The app will actually open with demo data and then you can decide to point that app to actually read data from your application insights resource, which is a good thing. Let's go to the app here. Because what this means, you can see this, you're viewing this app with sample data. What this means is you can actually take this app, even show it to a prospective customer in a pre-sales meeting if a question pops up, such as maybe they have an IT manager that would like to, that would say something like, this is SaaS software, how do we monitor, how do we see anything there? You can just bring this up and show it. It will have no customer data because it's sample data. Or maybe you have a project manager on the customer side, or maybe a project sponsor on the customer side, someone who wants this ERP system, and they are interested in either how can we make sure people use the system, or how can we do user acceptance testing of this rollout and make sure that like, how do we do status reports there? You can just say, well, this is how that could look. You can use an app for this instead of writing reports. Now you also notice here that workspace I put in as a name is actually going to be the name for this. That can come in handy if you have multiple. If you want to share this app, the telemetry data with the customer, you probably want to partition your application insights data per customer. So you would have one customer, one application insights resource, and one app, one Power BI app. If you do that, there's no risk of mix and match and show one customer and other customers' data, because it's all partitioned by customer. And if you do that, you could even make the workspace name here the name of the customer to make it super easy to see. Right now I'm looking at data from this particular customer. All right, so let's wait with actually connecting this or show what you can do, and let me give you a quick tour. So actually, let me just show you, because then I can get rid of this banner. So if I don't want sample data, but actually want to connect this to the telemetry resource, I just need to provide two things. I need to provide where data is located. This is the application insights application ID, and you get that from application insights under API access, and then you copy it in. I think I added a screenshot of that here. Let me just show you here. So if you go to application insights and go under API access, there's an application ID here, and you simply click copy to clipboard, and that's the API or the GUI that you put in here. And the second thing you need for the configuration is how many days would you like to look back? Now, application insights allows you to store data for 2 years. I think the default retention policy, if you don't specify anything, is 90 days. But you could also choose to have 60 or maybe just 1 week or 1 day of data. What does look back period mean? Let's just pick 30 days. Well, if you don't do anything, the app actually refresh at midnight. So look back period 30 days means that every night the app will just refresh and look at the last 30 days, and you will have a sliding window of whatever you put in that look back period. So that's what that means. These are the only things, two things that are required to then the app will start loading data. And there are a few more things you can do if you like. First of all, if you have multiple, if you choose to have an app that, well, if you choose to partition your telemetry data so in such a way that multiple customers are in the same telemetry resource, it can be hard to just by the AD, tenant ID, to know which customer it is. So it is possible to put in or to configure a mapping from an AD tenant to a customer name, and that's this parameter here. All of that, how to do that, is documented here in the BC Tech repo. Basically, what you need to do is do a minified version of this JSON format where you specify this is the tenant ID, AD tenant ID. This is how I would like it to show up in the app. So that all of that is documented on BC Tech. And the final thing you can configure is time zone. Why is time zone important? Well, you can, I cannot move this window, but you will see a lot of the visuals on the pages have hour of day counters. So you can see the usage of things by hour of day. And Business Central platform will emit telemetry in UTC time zone. So that means your hour of day visuals without any time zone indication will just show that in UTC. That's great if you're in London. If you're in Hawaii, or where I live in Fargo, North Dakota, or in Australia, those visuals are going to be skewed compared to what a customer or a user would really expect. 10 o'clock a.m. UTC is very different from 10 o'clock a.m. in Hawaii. So that's why you can specify where are my customers located, and then these hour of day visuals will then reflect that choice. All right, let's just cancel this and just go with demo data for now. So I'll just click this away. Right, so that's how you configure it. It's all documented on BC Tech, and it will be part of Docs pretty soon. Okay, so I told you that telemetry shouldn't really be a technical discipline. It shouldn't only be for the troubleshooters and the people who like to write custo queries and have you. It should be something that is accessible and easy to use for everyone in your partner practice. So let's put on my first hat here and put on a functional consultant or a project manager, someone who is working with the implementation project for a customer. It could be either before go live or even after go live. And let's see kind of how the app helps this persona. So I'm currently in the usage report, and the first page I see is the sessions page. This is where I can see what kind of users are logging in. Is it guest users or administrators or normal users? And I can see that by client type, whether it's interactive or background sessions. I can dive more into what kind of browsers do they use, what kind of clients do they use, desktop, tablet, phone, what's the popular client types, what's the popular browsers, which screen sizes do they use? Is this a customer where they all have like big monitors, or is this a customer where they all still use XP and some very low screen resolution? That might be something that would be of interest if you just design your user interfaces, or maybe choose which fields are standard on list pages and so on. On locations, I can see from where people log in the world, and also which languages the users prefer in the client. So this is two different kind of localizations. It's not localizations as is which app localization it is, right? This is where do people log in from, and this is by IP address. This is controlled by the application insights, so it's not something the platform actually knows. And this is the user locale when people go into Business Central and put their favorite language, that pops up here. So why could that be of interest when you're an implementation project? Well, maybe you are surprised about that you have some Danish speaking users. So it might be that your training need to cater to make sure that either you have training in this language, or at least people who speak Danish also can understand the training you do in English. Maybe the screenshots should be in your whatever you provide, at least should be something else. I don't know. That's something you would know. Maybe you would like to know that as part of that implementation project. In page views, you can see popular pages. So these are the statistics for different pages. Also, where do they come from, these pages? You can see page views over the day. Here's this hour of day visual. You can see in which time zone this is. So whatever 7 p.m. means, it's 7 p.m. in Hawaii. You can see how people use the pages over the week, and also there's a calendar view down here that is that the look back period really determines the size of this calendar. Of course, you can, if you have configured your application insights telemetry resource with multiple customers, you can dive into one particular customer and one particular environment. You can see this hierarchy here of this is the customer name, this is the AD tenant, and this is the different environment names. You can also, here in filters, there are global filters on all pages, or global filters. So I can also here say I would like only to look at Contoso 1. That was a bad example. Let's take Contoso 10. Not a lot happening there, but I can dive into that, and this setting will then be the same filter across the usage report. So, as a design principle, any of these that you can have a category of is typically present in filters. If not, let me know, and so that's probably a bug in the page. So that's kind of the way you can use pages as what is popular, but of course, as part of maybe user acceptance testing, it could be interesting to see the lack of pages. Like if you're not seeing a page here, that means that the customer have not yet tried that. Of course, you can filter if you do, like say, Tenant extensions, or you have app source extensions for that environment. You can filter to the publisher and then make sure that people are testing the Tenant extension, for instance. You can also use this after go live to follow up with the customer. Let's say this intention of this implementation project would be that the customer or the users at the customer side want to have these processes enabled, and therefore these pages, reports, and features is what they are expected to use. But if they are not, like if you don't have any usage data of that, that means you could have a conversation with the project sponsor that what should we do to enable users, because they're not actually using the system in the way that you and I intended.
Kenny, if I may ask a small question.
Sure.
In the previous view, the platform page views related to the platform does not have a version. What is the reason for that?
Yeah, this is probably because there's just an implementation detail. Platform typically, the version is probably coming from the AL version, and platform is like beneath or underneath version. So that's why I could probably fix that so that it finds the version. The hard part, or maybe I should just filter these out. I'll actually make a note of that. Maybe it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have whether people are using the search form or not. I don't know. Let me make a note of the version here and see what I could do for that. It might also be that the web client or the web client might not know the version, because it's the web client who emits these. Good question. You're awake, that's fine. Reports and feature usage, all of these 3 page views, reports, feature usage, it's kind of the same thing. It shows usage of the system. Reports is usage of reports. So same 3 scenarios works for reports page as well. Before go live as user acceptance testing, after go live to see if people are using it. Actually, also after go live, popular pages, reports, or features, you could also have a conversation about how people can bookmark like important things to their role center and show them that. For reports, there's actually one more interesting thing going on here is you can see the layout type, whether it's Word, RDLC, or Excel. And Excel layouts is a new feature in version 20.0, where end users can now lay out the reports with Excel and then consume the reports in Excel. That means that you could shift your development resources for some types of reports that like leans to themselves well to Excel, that you as a partner maybe stop doing so much in RDLC or Word layouts and simply focus on getting the AL object or the AL report object developed for the customer, and then the customer takes over and do all the layout work. So if that's compelling story for you, you can use this to check to see whether they're actually using Excel layouts or not. If they are, maybe follow up with more of this. How can we work better on reporting with us making the AL object and you making the layout, or maybe more training in Power Query and other advanced Excel features. And if they're not doing, if you can see, no, they're not doing anything with Excel layouts, maybe introduce them to this topic and see if that's something that could be of interest for them. Again, you can see this same pattern. All the pages have the same kind of pattern. You have some statistics table here with numbers. You have some categorized visuals here. This is reports by layout types, also by how they run reports, whether they download, print, or send to inbox. And then these visuals over the day, over the week, and by date. So that's something you recognize everywhere. Feature usage is what it is, which which events in which features are popular. And this is something that Microsoft, that we built a library for. So there is in the system app a library called Feature Telemetry, I think it's called. And anyone writing AL code can actually emit feature telemetry. If you do that for your Tenant extensions or for your app source apps, it will actually show up here in the report with no, like you don't need to do anything. The only thing you need to do using the feature telemetry module is you need to implement an interface where you decide what does logging of features mean, but that's a very small thing. And then it will pop up here in feature usage, which I think would be a very nice, easy way to see feature errors, feature usage, and feature uptake. Integrations. I'm still in the role of the project manager. I can directly see like which external systems do we integrate to and from, which endpoints, which extensions integrate with Business Central, which ones are chatty. In this case, it's this particular extension is very chatty. I can see who made it, and again I can see calls over the day, over the week, and calendar. This is excluding Microsoft connectors because it has its own report. There's the UI of this is already fixed, so this endpoint here. Oh, I can do that. Nice. I don't need to do this in the next version of the app. But here you can see whether people are using Power Automate, Power BI, or other Microsoft connectors. Again, how chatty they are. And both for the integrations and connectors could be of at least something you discover. It could be that the customer have started using Power Automate and you didn't know. Okay, it shows up here. Interesting. Should we have a conversation more about that? And again, of course, lack of data here means that they are not doing anything in these areas. Deprecated features, this is great, this is empty, because this is the use of web service key authentication or basic auth. As you hopefully know, this is in the online, in SaaS version of Business Central, has been deprecated in version 20.0 and will be completely removed in 21.0. So if you have anything popping up here, you need to start a migration project by April, which is we are now in July. So you might not know as a partner whether a customer is using web service keys, because that could be an extension they installed that is using that. So this is a very easy way to see whether a customer is having any traffic using web service key authentication, and you can have that conversation. This will break, dear customer. How should we get you out of that mess? All the reports have about the report that like shows you, or at least some documentation of what is this report about, what does the different pages show, where is data coming from. So for the clients page here, it's available in 16.3 and later. If you want to dive further into writing Custo queries because the report is not enough, there's a link to the sample query here and a link to documentation of this data, telemetry data, so you know exactly. You can learn more about what is this this particular telemetry structure, and then there are some see also links. So that was usage. Let's put on different hats for just a few minutes, and then go back and put on the implementer's hat. Let's talk about administration. So now I am the tenant admin, either on partner side, but could also be on the customer side. If it's a bigger customer, they might have an IT department that would like to also have some say in the administration of Business Central, even though it is online. The app, by the way, and telemetry. So the telemetry works in on-premises as well. It's just that some signal is not present for on-premises, but in particular page views and login telemetry is not. So any pages that if you have telemetry for an on-premises environment, that will just show some of these pages with no data. And two things that you will not get for on-premises are these two, inventory and update planning, because this is data from the Business Central SaaS control plane. In the first page here in the administration report, I can just see an inventory of the environments and tenants that are in this telemetry resource. I can see which version they are on, which localization they are on, whether they have been deleted or renamed in the past. So you can see this hierarchy of AD tenant and environments, and then which companies you have, with links to admin center and direct link to the environment. You can also see, I don't have data for that here, but if I had data in telemetry, I would be able to see which environments are scheduled for updates. It would show you when an update is available, the current version of the environment, and whatever it's going to be updated to. Also, the deadline shown by Microsoft that if you don't do anything, we will force update you by this date. All of that is shown here in the update planning. Now, as an administrator, a very common scenario is that the customer calls you or writes you on Teams or whatever you have for communicating that something changed, and last Friday could be UI changed, ability changed, functionality changed, performance changed, data changed, something changed, and what, like, why? Well, in the all changes report here, you can see any lifecycle event on either environment level, company level, extension level, or index level You can see that in the type here and the type of event that happened. So what you can do is simply use a filter, and let me just get rid of this webinar thing here. And I could put in a date time filter here and kind of zoom into when this happened. I'm pretty sure I can find a good advanced filter where I can say this value is between something. So I can zoom in on Friday, and then I can see what happened on Friday. Maybe it was an extension update or something, and then I can dive further in. So for instance, for environment changes, I can see, was it Microsoft that applied a hotfix? Maybe that data is not there anymore because a tenant admin did a point-in-time restore. So whatever was in Friday, a tenant admin did a point-in-time restore of data to Thursday, and that's why you don't have that Friday data anymore. It could be this environment was updated. So an update was rolling on that changed something. It could be a company changed. Company could be that maybe this company was deleted. So that's why you don't have it anymore, and you can dive further into telemetry to kind of see, or at least you would know that the reason this company is not there that was Friday is because it was deleted. That's good to know. How do we then get it back? Well, you could do a point-in-time restore, or you could do other things, but at least you would know why. Or it could be an extension that changed. It could be that this extension was, maybe a new extension was installed. So here you have install. Let's see if I have some interesting thing. I could have an update of an extension. I could have extension that was installed, or whatever other lifecycle events on extension that could have explain why that behavior changed. So that's what you have in the administration report. A lot of things for the administrator. Okay, let me put on my implementer's hat again. So here's the error report. I have a dashboard here. So instead of just having data, I actually have a little bit more like information here. I have a dashboard that shows all the errors happening in the system. Just a second. Esther, jeg har et webinar kørende her. So here I have a total overview of errors happening for users, errors happening for integrations, or setup or Business Central modules that are complaining about something. So for instance, I can go in here and I can have a look at, let's say, configuration packages that failed. And I can see which packages, what was the package code, what was the operation that failed. And it could be, you can see these, there's a little bit of guidance of like, what is I'm seeing here and what could I do about it? Maybe it's due to a timeout or failure in that package. I could also make it of interest to see integrations that fail. So these are web service logins failures, web service key login failures, incoming connector calls from Microsoft connectors that authorize but fail somehow, incoming and outgoing calls. So all of these would be integrations to the outside world that fail. Why would that be of interest? Well, before go live, you probably want to drive all of these to 0, so that in your goal, once you have go live, you kind of have your error situation under control. And then in the first week or two after go live, you can monitor this and see if something pops up, and you can fairly easy go in and be proactive about it. You can of course be even more proactive if you use alerts on telemetry, so that you know before they know, so that you don't have to monitor a dashboard. But even having these numbers here hopefully will make that go live experience much better, because you know exactly what's going on. For users, you can see if users cannot log in. Now there's a 0 here, so there's no data, but that's interesting. I'll need to look into that. There should be, of course, no here. If a 0 is showing up, there should be a 0 here. But that's nice. Let's see. So I have a failure reason that the user is not a member of AD security group. So it seems like there are some users here that are trying to log in, but they are kind of stopped in the open company trigger. Nice to know. Then you can, at least you already know what's going on, what the failure is. As a new thing in version 20.0, we have telemetry. Whenever a user gets an error dialog shown, this is a log to telemetry. So I can actually see that here. I can see which users, not which users, that will come later. But you can see which errors are popping up. In this case here, there is no item within the filter. That's not interesting. Let's say this one here, direct unit costs. This is an error dialog that someone saw. You can see from which extension and object that is coming from, and you can see the AL call stack of that error. You can also see which type, like where do errors typically come from, whether it's per tenant extension, Microsoft extensions, or AppSource apps, which publisher is throwing most errors, and then error dialogues over the day. I don't know how I would use that. Maybe like, I don't know, probably you want more just to drive errors down to 0. Again, there's some guidance here. Where do people get error dialogues? Is something not set up correctly, or maybe users need training? You also notice that since data is now shown, we'll also need to do something from Microsoft end to make sure that our telemetry or our error is better. Right now, we are not logging this particular error message to telemetry because we have a concern about privacy. So we also need to change our code. Typically in this one would be in platform, probably. No, I think it will be, and then the actual error message will pop up. So that's something we'll fix on our end. I have error message feedback also in version 20.0. Whenever a user gets an error dialog, there's now a small text stating, was this useful, thumbs up, thumbs down, and the user can vote. And what this will then show, that vote will show yes, no here. And you will also be able to see which language the user saw this in. It could be that the error message is bad because it was a bad translation, or it could be that the error message, even in your main language, is bad. Let's see if I can dive further into some of these to see if I get some. Here is an error that definitely needs improving. This is not the actual error message. This is again platform making sure that we don't break privacy. So we'll fix that. But you can see this error is coming from this extension by Microsoft, and this is the AL call stack for that. You can also see the bad error message by user and language, and it could be that you can find a translation problem just by looking at these visuals. And then finally, in version 20.1, I think we added permission errors. So permission errors is just like a subset of error dialogues, but these are very specific to an area where you have a permission area and permission type that is giving a permission error, and you can use this to see like spot permission errors and maybe find out where they happen and fix it. So that's something that you can always already use the error dashboard for. And there are many other, like any of these come with their own page in the report, so you can dive into that. Right, I have 16 minutes left. I will actually skip most of this performance reports here. Sorry about that, but I was hoping that this telemetry app will be for, let's say, the non-machine room. Like there's a lot of things in the performance report as well, but let's try to not make telemetry a technical thing, and performance is typically a very technical thing. So I'll just spend a few minutes here. There's much more going on here than what I can show you in a few minutes, because I also have some more stuff to show you in the webinar. The performance report come also with the recommendations page, and this is trying to distill known performance anti-patterns that can be inferred from telemetry and show them as on a dashboard. For instance, logins where on company open is slow. So in this particular report here, what this will do is simply, in the first place, just go to on company open report. There's some guidance here, especially for the performance report, much more guidance of what to look for. So what is slow on company open? Well, I decided slow is anything larger than 1 or 2 seconds is probably slow. But for on company open, there's even more data and telemetry. So here under further analysis, you can actually see whether that slowness is coming from long-running AL or long-running SQL, because we have that and we have the call stack in both of these types of telemetry, so we know. So you can actually down here say, go further into long-running SQL happening in, you can see now we have a filter here on the stack trace on company open. So this would be long-running SQL executing in on company open trigger. Let me just get rid of this here and go back to the recommendations here. So hopefully there will be things that you can simply spot by clicking on it. It's not necessarily for fixing a performance problem that happens, but maybe fixing performance problems that is coming, because you can also already see in telemetry that something is going on. Right, that's kind of what I wanted to show in the app. And I don't know, Luc, if there are any questions. If not, I'll just continue talking, because I can talk you to death about this, and I won't. So a few things I mentioned was, first of all, I talked about feature telemetry. If you go to the App Insights repository for resources, and if you don't remember it, it's this short URL, BC telemetry samples, will take you to the repository here. Feature telemetry is hiding under AL and feature telemetry, and here you have, it's not documentation, but it's more samples. This is also documented in docs. There's some goodness here that might be of interest for you. First of all, feature telemetry here, the way you use it in your AL code is simply use these 3 methods. Usage is when people are using your feature. Error is when an error happens, and uptake is kind of different phases of uptaking that feature. Phases that you can use are undiscovered, discovered, set up, and used. So if you instrument your apps with this, you can download from this site Power BI reports that gives you funnels and MAU, or I think MAT, I even forgot, monthly active transactions maybe. But that will give you a funnel of whether people are using the features or not, and then how they use your features. So you get that for free. That is the Power BI report here. And for you to actually use that, you need to implement an interface. You need to implement this telemetry logger interface with what do you mean by log message and log error and no, just log message. This is where you can specify, whenever we have feature telemetry, we always put in these custom dimensions or whatever it is, and then you need to subscribe to this event subscriber. So that's the way you do feature telemetry. The second thing I wanted to show you was alerts. This is here under alerts. So remember I talked about being proactive. This is exactly what alerts is all about. Alerts is that you can get alerted if something happens. And you can get alerted in email or Teams or phone or any other thing you might want. You can have a logic app that throws a message to DevOps or Slack or whatever you like. It's totally up to you. You can even aggregate. So instead of having one message for each whatever update available, you can just aggregate and say, tomorrow, these environments are going to be updated. So alerts is just two things you need to do. First, you need to specify a condition, and second, you need to specify a channel. So I talked about the channels here. Conditions are all expressed in KQL, this custom query language. And for you to get started, I added samples for whenever you have database regressions, when an environment is update is available, whenever an environment failed to update, or an extension failed to update, or job queue failed, and so on. So write and login performance. So typically you want to be notified by something went wrong, but you could also be alerted if something good is happening, for instance, that an update is available. Totally up to you. If you think there would be other scenarios where you would like a sample query, I can write it for you, and by this putting it here, we share with everyone. And then the final thing I want to show you is here under presentations. Here I have added a couple of not BI, but PowerPoint decks that you can use internally or with your customers, or if you need to do a conference presentation or what have you. The first one is just about what is telemetry. The second one here is maybe more of interest. After this webinar, you think about how could we operationalize this in our partner practice, and this deck is exactly about that. Let me show you. So what I did in this deck was I took the Gartner BI maturity model. So the Gartner BI maturity model, Gartner made a model to kind of describe how organizations get more data driven. So I took their model, they have these steps, unaware, tactical, focused, and so on, and interpreted that in the context of a Business Central partner and telemetry as the data. So these are the model describes these phases, and I put in the deck kind of how could you interpret that. So for each of these phases, you can see a description of the characteristics of this phase. Maybe you know this is important, but you don't know how to proceed. And then some advice of how to get to the next phase. It might be that you are kind of all over the place, but at least you have some advice of getting more data driven. Both these types of advice are in the business sponsor, what I call a business sponsor, and a technical sponsor. A business sponsor would typically be in sales or in implementation projects, or if you have like director of implementation or something like that, where it's not necessarily the troubleshooting that is in focus. And for the technical sponsor could typically be developers or people who do troubleshooting. And both of these roles get some advice for different stages here. So take a look to see if you could get some quick wins that might fit your partner practice on getting more data driven. Of course, the app is here as well as other resources. All right, well, then I will just show you one last thing on the app. There are many things I didn't show you in the performance report. So performance is something that's close to my heart, but maybe not everyone share that view. I'll just show one thing. Long-running SQL queries. Again, as I told you, there's some guidance here of what to look for. But for each of these, you have query statistics. You can pick one here. You see this is select statement. The sum of some time here is 2,100 seconds that was spent here, with a maximum of 30 seconds for one execution of that query. You can see it's coming from typically this code unit in different versions, and this is the SQL detail. What is the SQL statement? How many joins do we do? Which this directly translates to how many table extensions there are. How many outer applies do we do? This corresponds to how many flow fields are on this, and then or it typically does. I think in this one it might be that we are looking up metadata tables. So for your queries, these would correspond to number of table extensions and number of flow fields. And then the last thing here is then interesting. I'm missing one very important thing, is the call stack. You can find that here somewhere, I'm pretty sure, stack trace, but actually stack trace should be here. So I think I missed that when I added our new fancy layout for it, or maybe it's hidden. So I'll make sure I'll put that here on SQL. Let's take another one, outgoing web service calls. Here again, some guidance, look for high number of calls, high number of average. You get where the object or where this call is coming from in which extension. And then for outgoing calls, you don't actually have a call stack. Maybe for incoming calls, I don't. Let's see if I can find reports. Here I do actually get the layout, the SQL statistics, and not the call stack. I can't find any call stacks if I really want to. Company open, I would have a call stack. No. Interesting. And of course, in company open, you know it's where it is. I would just like to see if I can actually find one of these with a call stack. Job queue. Don't have a call stack. Don't have a call stack in any of these. Oh, I have to look at the performance report to see if I've tried to hide them by default. That was not on purpose. Anyway, I think time's up, Luc. Maybe time for you to stop the some closing comments in the webinar.
There were a couple of questions.
Sure.
So let me try to read them out. One question from Andrew Aldrich about the error section which you were displaying, let's say 20 minutes ago. Is that also available, or is there any idea of getting it available to the client, to the customers? Or is this is only meant for partners to look at?
Got it. Yeah, so that's totally up to you how you decide to run your partner practice. Once the app is deployed, it's on Power BI, your Power BI resource, so you can share that with the customer. So that's, that's totally up to you. I added guidance. Let's see here in the BC Tech. Am I still sharing my screen? Yes, I think I am. Power BI, App Source, README here. If I go down, scroll down to the bottom of this page, you can also see how you can share the app with coworkers and customers. So it is very easy to share the report. So I urge you to do that. Actually, that would just make that communication with the customer much easier. Yeah. Any other questions, Luc?
Yeah. Another one from Nikolai Topalov. Concerned by Nikolai whether enabling application inside would have an impact on the performance, collecting all the data. Should that have some impact or not?
Yeah,
does it have impact or not?
Yes. As anything impacts performance if you do something, right? So yes, it does impact performance, but it's unlikely to be something that your customers or users can feel. Application Insights is doing any of this data, sending this data asynchronously. It's buffered very effectively on the platform, and you shouldn't see any impact on user performance at all.
Great, thank you. I'm going to close off, but I would like to thank you, of course, for being here, Kenny, spending time with us, showing us everything you showed today. I will make sure on the recording that I'll get some of the hiccups fixed, what I can do. Thanks for this, Hank. Once more time, Kenny. I'm getting a bit confused, sorry for that. And we're going to round up for today and hope to see everybody again on the next webinar in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luc.